Hey everyone, welcome back. Like I said in my little thing the other day, I am sorry. This video is going up late. I do feel bad. Like I said, I had a minor health scare over the last weekend, and I just was not able to record this. It was hard to talk and it was hard to teach, so I was not able to do this until pretty much middle of the week this week. So, that being said, please note, by the time this goes up, it'll probably be late Thursday or Friday just because of how long it takes to edit these recordings and then upload them. So apologies there. But good news, bad news. This is the last week, and so we are talking about our special topics too. And no one had reached out to me personally to ask about any other topics, so I figured I did promise we would talk a little bit more about juvenile justice, so we are going to talk about the juvenile justice system. So right now I actually do have our PA local government website on the Bureau of Juvenile Justice Services. So this is our juvenile justice for the state of Pennsylvania. This is the landing website. And so I figured, since I don't want to give too much away because, then why would you take juvenile justice as a class? I'd at least, share some of these services, look at this, talk about a little bit with you. If you're interested in juvenile justice, take the course. Some of these things that you see will probably be brought up in that class. I can't guarantee, but it'd be interesting. So anyway, like I said, this is our Pennsylvania Department of, or Bureau of Juvenile Justice Services. And so, technically speaking, you can look this up. Every Department of Human Services or the criminal justice, it all depends. Ours is through Human Services, but each state has their own website in relation to this. So, obviously, this is ours. And so, ours includes, programs. It includes information. So, we actually have... there are additional services and links and whatnot that are in this corner. So we can look at the Council of Juvenile Correctional Administrators, things like that. We can look at the Juvenile Law Center in Pennsylvania, chief probation officers, like all of these things. If it's related to the juvenile justice system and service, this is the home landing page to kind of go to find resources, individuals, etc. One thing I do want to talk about briefly because we talked about it a lot. See, we have probation, parole, corrections, the Coalition on Crime and Delinquency, all these things that, terms we've heard before, and definitely delinquency is something we're going to be talking about a lot in juvenile justice. Because remember, and this is just going back to something we talked about in the text, juveniles, based off of the fact that they are minors, they are not adults, there are some different rules and different laws. But one thing I did want to talk about just briefly in relation to this is Mental Health Association of PA and Disability Rights Network. Remember, because the system viewed juveniles as mini adults, a lot of these things weren't necessarily on the same level. Nowadays, we are more understanding and talking about it. And actually, that's one thing that I do want to talk about on one of these links. Where is it? Here it is. Sorry. I have so many different links open because I wanted to talk about a wide spectrum of things within the juvenile justice system, just to give you a little taste of things that are talked about. The American Civil Liberties Union. This is the big group behind civil rights. They're the ones that make sure, things are for everyone and things like that. But within that, we are still working on the juvenile system. So if you remember, historically speaking, the juveniles would be tried as adults, put in adult prisons, and that's kind of like, not good. So we made a separate system for them. And if you remember, when we talked about the separate system, one of the things we talked about, as in the whole system, but it's true for juvenile system as well, we had this shift where we focused, it's rehabilitative, but that's kind of going soft on criminals. So really, we need to be hard on criminals. And so we kind of shifted our focus from helping people to let's punish them and show them that when you misbehave, this is what you get. And so we were tough on crime. And to be fair, the reality was that this isn't accurate. And that's something that I do want to talk about that. So right here, the American Civil Liberties Union does mention that, society treats kids and adults differently. But in the criminal justice system, even though we have the separate system, we still treat the youth and children as adults. And so they do have some statistics right here. Average cost of incarcerating a young person compared to community-based alternative. Much like we talked about with a regular offender, we're looking at $241 versus $75. So $241 to incarcerate, $75 for a community-based. Clearly, we can see some issues like that. And then black youths are incarcerated in state-run youth prisons at 5 times the rate white youth are. Take that as you will. And about 60,000 children are incarcerated in juvenile facilities on any given day. So just a couple little statistics out there for you. But this is where I wanted to talk about just briefly. And that's the American Civil Liberties Union specifically is looking at, because we had that tough on crime approach, we are seeing now that, especially in the juvenile system, we're realizing that that's not the answer. We're realizing that, young people are still developing. And that's kind of the thing that I think we've forgotten at a couple different times in our own history as a people. You are not fully formed. I don't remember what the actual age is, but I'm trying to remember what age is it that they say officially you are a grown-up, and I know it's in your mid-20s. It's not when you're 18. We expect individuals who are under the age of 18 to be perfect little adults, and that's not the reality. They're growing. They're still learning, and just because they made a mistake shouldn't mean that they lose out on everything. And so really, American Civil Liberties Union, their focus on juvenile justice has been way more pushing towards that rehabilitation, being like, you know what, let's not imprison them, let's not incarcerate them, and let's actually, do some community-wide things. So the more community alternatives like parole, probation, I want to say boot camps, as we've talked about, but not quite boot camps. So yeah, their mission here is to expand the community alternatives rather than jail and prison, to reduce the number of children behind bars. So whether you agree with the notion or not, this is kind of the big say right now in juvenile justice, that we're trying to focus more on rehabilitation rather than punishment. And so if you remember in the class, I said we're starting to see the pendulum shift of regular justice system. It's because the way the juvenile system is working, I imagine that it will have some wide-reaching impact on the criminal justice system as a whole. But again, American Civil Liberties Union is not a government agency, but it is a group of individuals who are active and are vocal parts of this. And so it's important to talk about this kind of stuff. In relation to this, there is the Coalition for Juvenile Justice. This is another one of those interesting private groups that's not federally funded or anything, but their mission is to be state advisory groups. And that's the important thing that I wanted to distinguish between the American Civil Liberties Union attacks is the wrong word. They address and deal with the wide scope. But here, the Coalition for Juvenile Justice is at the state level. Because if you remember, we talked about this in Intro to Criminal Justice in the beginning and all throughout. Our system is dual federalism. We have the federal government and we have the state government. So this group is a group of small level state advisory groups with the goal, very much like the American Civil Liberties Union, of reducing the number of children who are charged with wrongdoing and entering into the justice system. So they're trying to be proactive on this instead of reactive, and trying to reduce the number of offenders and that sort of thing. So these are, like I said, not like federal groups. They're not official government agencies, but these are individuals who are vocal with lawmaking bodies and the system itself. And so it's important to at least mention what their kind of impact is. Whew. Okay. So in the same area, we do have our Juvenile Justice for Pennsylvania, the Commission on Crime and Delinquency. This is the kind of like sub-focus, whereas this is the Bureau of Juvenile Justice Services, which will link to everything else. This is particularly one area, and this is the criminal justice side. This is the less of just everything. This is more of the what they can do, what our local individuals, our state-run, like how to help individuals. So prevention strategies, like that's a big thing. Probably one of the biggest things that we will talk about in the juvenile justice class is delinquency is a big thing. I will tell you that right now. And so preventing delinquency is a big thing. And so we do have research and evidence on what works and things like that. And so this is a particular subsection of our larger juvenile justice system that's focus is on, helping youths within the system. I'm trying to avoid using the word criminal when referring to individuals in the juvenile justice system. So if you're wondering why I keep stuttering over words and then coming up with something like child or individual, it's because I'm trying to remain neutral and humanize these individuals. I did it with the adults when we were talking about them in the rest of the class, so I'm just trying to do justice here for the juvenile system. Just so you're aware. All right. So this is the big old side. We have seen a little hint of this website before, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. This is a nationwide thing. And, at the end of the day, and this is why, even the American Civil Liberties Union, this is something that our own official Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. This is on the same frequency as this because treat children as children. This is one of their missions. This is something that they're trying to do, is to remember that these are not adults. And so there are ways that we can go about this. And so this is why I said I see the pendulum swing, and this is a good thing. We're seeing this understanding of this. But part of this, and also with our own federal government as well as state government and everything, there's a lot of research and evidence to show that the home life is impactful. And we know this. I can actually speak on this part for education as well. In the education field, we know that if the home life is not supportive of education, the child's not going to learn education. So we're seeing this in criminal justice. We're seeing this in a lot of different social aspects. If home life is not stable, then we are doing a disservice. And so this is one of those involving the family, making sure that the family life and the home life is this healthy, stable environment, can actually reduce juvenile delinquency and criminal activity. This is really, the heart of this is psychology And so I do encourage every one of you who's listening to this, if you haven't taken a psych class, I encourage you to sign up for one. Psychology is the basis for a lot of understanding, and there is a room, if you are in the CJ program, there's room for some electives, and I will tell you right now, I will encourage any kind of psychology simply because that's how we better understand offenders, how we understand the mentally ill who are a part of the system because we do not have the proper places and things for them. It's important to understand the psyche. And so with juveniles, getting them involved earlier, this is an important piece. And then something else that we kind of touched on when we talked about probation and parole, they say open up opportunities for system-involved youth, so ways to incorporate involvement, but this is also work placement later on in life. And so we'll talk about that briefly in a second, but so there's this website as well. In getting stuff ready for this, I actually came across this. I was like, youth.gov. I don't have enough background on it to say, yes, this is a good one or bad one, but it seems to be it's a .gov, so it's a government site, but it seems to be kind of a landing ground for anything related to juvenile justice. So if you are interested in any particular pieces about it, I would suggest try starting here. Like I said, in preparing for this little lecture, I found this website and I was like, I don't know enough about it to really go in depth, but the reason I say it's like a landing ground is I did check a couple things. And so one thing I found was the GREAT program, which is Gang Resistance in Education. And it actually takes you to their official website for Gang Resistance and Gang Resistance and Education and Training program. And so the entire idea around this is to reduce gang involvement and violence at the school level, and getting kids early before they dive into that world of crime. So it really is a a landing ground for these things. So like the reintegration of ex-offenders, and this is where I was kind of getting at. We talked about with parole and probation. One of the roles is to help find a job. And so the reentry employment opportunity program, the whole point is that, when you become reoriented to society, when you come back into society after whatever sentence you had, you should be able to return to a semi-normal life, which means you can still add to society. But that employment opportunity, anyone that knows any of those cliches, a criminal record makes it harder to get a job. That is true. But there are individuals who are there to help. And so this actually is something that's been worked on. And there is a focus on young adults, but it does apply to older adults as well. But it just kind of this is a landing board for other things. And then they also include statistics and information. So this was just a brief research thing. The website officially where it links to is the UCLA Williams Institute School of Law. And as you can tell, this is actually really recent. And it actually has to do with the foster care system and how girls in that system, and particularly LBQ, so lesbian, bi, and queer girls in foster care and of a certain ethnicity tend to be more frequent and that kind of thing, and why that's an issue and things like that. So there is a lot of information out there. And so, like I said, I do encourage, if you're interested in the field as a broad overview, definitely check out youth.gov. It seems to have a lot of links to, like I said, programs as well as research. So while I can't speak too much on its validity, I can say that being a .gov already puts it pretty high up there, and having direct links to research and data is also really good. So, yeah. I really didn't have a focus in mind when I was preparing for this. I just wanted to give a nice little overview of what you can look forward to talking about in the juvenile justice class. And so I know we didn't really go into too much here. I did just share kind of a couple different websites and a couple different ideas. So at the end of the day, the big takeaway that I want to say about this is, if you are taking the juvenile justice class, obviously we're going to talk a lot about, we're going to cover the history that we touched upon a little bit in this text and some of those cases and things like that. But for those of you that aren't going to be taking the juvenile justice course, just hopefully you remember that from what we did talk about in this main class, that juveniles were treated as adults and now they're being treated as kids, and what that impact is. So I just always encourage you and remind you to be conscientious, be thoughtful, and think about someone else's position. I know that's kind of not what you were expecting from this, but it's important to say, if this is the last video lecture you have with me and you take nothing else away from this course, even if you have me for another course, I really hope that you take this particular piece to heart. Consider other people's perspectives. Everyone goes through life differently. And so this is just a perfect example of, we didn't treat children differently and we realized that was a bad idea. So we treated them differently, and that's a better system than what we used to have. Be considerate of everyone. Consider things from their point of view and what could help. Our goal, and the criminal justice system's overall goal, is not to hurt people. It's to help and protect. Remember that. The goal of the criminal justice system is to protect, to help and protect. Yes, sometimes that means that harm comes to individuals, but that's not the goal. The goal is not to harm someone. The goal is to protect. All right? Well, that just about wraps it up for me. I said it in my little post thing, and I said in the discussion board, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for, sticking around, being part of this first Intro to Criminal Justice course here at EC3. I can also say this was my first time teaching criminal justice class, and I had a lot of fun. So, thank you. Yeah, I really don't have anything else. And if I felt super better, I would show you my face, but I am not feeling great today, even though I'm much better. But looks like I got an email coming in. But I just want to say, again, thank you very much. And if I don't have you in another class, I wish you good luck. And I will be your cheerleader from the sidelines. So, yeah. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, a wonderful month, a wonderful year, and a wonderful semester. Don't forget to finish your exam. Your exam is due by Monday the 17th at 11:59 p.m. Anyway, thank you, everyone, and hopefully I see you all soon. Bye.